Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire drops a bombshell on Nate, and Adam plans his own attack on Kane. In the jazz lounge, Adam and Chelsea discuss, what else but Kane, and why he's been so quiet since their coverage went live. Adam warns they need to be prepared for a counterattack that could come where they least expect it. Chelsea wonders if Kane or Lily told their kids before the news broke. Adam says they'd have been foolish not to prepare them. Chelsea figures they've lit a fuse and Kane's ready to explode. Ashby will never be able to trust Victor, and Adam admits that he does not agree with his father's strategy. Chelsea thinks it would be smart for Kane to partner with the mustache. He's probably too intimidated to go up against him. Adam makes a joke about how much she enjoys the intrigue and then suggests that he has a plan of his own that could win the war. Can Sally sell Billy on Audra? Sally and Billy jog into the Overlook, where she reminds him that he handed over the reins of Abbott Communications to her. They discuss the upcoming launch and she alludes to having a secret weapon. Billy's taken aback to hear she's hired Audra Charles as her right hand, but Sally brings him around by explaining Audra distrusts Victor and by pointing out that her pal won't let up until she comes out on top. Billy, unsurprisingly, steers the convo to getting Chancellor back. Sally wonders if he's prepared for full-scale battle on all fronts. How will anyone walk out unscathed? Billy remains confident. He has his own secret weapon. Both Kane and Victor will fail. Sally complains about the pressure of running an Abbott family company. Billy assures her she'll be spectacular. Will Claire out Audra? Holden entertains Tessa, Claire, and Daniel at society by telling them stories about Vespers and when he was young, dumb, and full of himself. When Audra and Nate walk in, Claire's expression darkens. Claire. Holden notices, but doesn't see why the fun has to stop because of Audra. Meanwhile, Nate irks Audra by insisting on checking on Claire. She joins him with a smile on her face. Claire looks pointedly at Audra as she reflects on fighting back, when life hits you. Tessa, Claire, Nate, Audra, Holden, Daniel. Daniel and Tessa extend their condolences to Nate while Claire glares in Audra's general direction. When Nate finally leads Audra away, Claire continues to eyeball her. Claire asks Tessa, "What's going on?" "I've had it with that woman," says Claire. She gets up and walks over to Nate, who is placing an order at the bar. Audra heads over in a panic as Claire says she's sorry to drop this on him, but his girlfriend made a deal with her grandfather to get Kyle to cheat on her. With her, Claire concludes, jerking her thumb in Audra's direction. Audra, Claire, Nate. Audra protests to Nate that Kyle made this up and planted it in his little girlfriend's head. Kyle is the one who was hitting on her. Doing her best Maury Puvic, Claire declares that is a lie. Audra insists Kyle was rubbing sunscreen on her in France and following her around. Claire brings up the kiss between the two of them right there in Genoa City. Audra fibs that Kyle came onto her again. Claire argues that she kissed Kyle, not the other way around. Claire tells Nate, turning to him, that she broke up with Kyle in exchange for Victor funding Vibrante. That's the kind of woman he's involved with. She bumps Audra's shoulder as she leaves the joint with Holden tailing her. Audra, Claire. Nate remains dazed as Audra insists Claire was outright lying. Nate, exhausted after his brother's funeral, says he's having a hard time knowing what to believe. Audra is annoyed that he doubts her, but Claire wouldn't lie, in his opinion. He squints that Audra's been acting dodgy since she got back from Nice and she walked away from Vibrante suddenly. Some of what Claire said holds water. Audra snarks. The hell it does. Audra, Nate. Alone at their table, Daniel and Tessa feel bad for Claire being upset by Audra just when she was having fun. Tessa admits that she was also having fun. The camera zooms in as she places her hand on Daniel's, and says it's all thanks to him. Daniel shrugs that he didn't do anything special. The four of them hit it off. Tessa disagrees. Outside of Aria, he's been the one bright spot in her life. She feels she can be happy again when she's with him. Daniel feels exactly the same about her. Daniel, Tessa. Another Billy and Adam clash. In the jazz lounge, Chelsea warns Adam not to go against his family. He assures her he won't. He'll just hit Kane from a different angle. Right then, Billy and Sally walk in. Sally makes a hasty accusation that they stabbed Billy in the back. Adam argues they only printed the truth. Billy tells Chelsea, It's not too late to redeem yourself. The news comes out about Sally running Abbott Communications, and Chelsea and Adam are both impressed, but Chelsea asks where that leaves Billy. He crows that he has exciting news of his own and he'll enlighten her very soon, via Abbott Communications. Adam, Chelsea, Sally, Billy once alone. Adam tells Chelsea he's sure Billy is down and out. Chelsea narrows her eyes. She knows Billy. He's not down and he's definitely not out. He wouldn't hand over the reins to his company unless he had something big in the works. Did Audra's plan work? At a cost? At the Overlook, Holden tells Claire he's impressed with the way she spoke to Audra, who's not used to that. What was she doing? He queries. Claire explains she's trying to gaslight her into thinking Kyle's been hitting on her. Holden asks why she'd do that. Claire says she made a deal with Victor, who agreed to fund her company. Holden admits it's on brand for Charles. Holden, Claire. He must ask, is there any chance Audra isn't lying about what happened in Nice, after Claire rants for a while? He knows firsthand how easy it is to sucked back into her charms. I adore Kyle, Claire declares. Holden nods. But, you still have doubts? She hates it, but she does. Holden, Claire. Can Audra wiggle out of this one? Audra tells Nate while they are still at society that she is certain Claire believes Kyle's lies because she is naive and vulnerable. Nate asks if Kyle is supposedly lying to cover up his lust for her. Audra snaps that Victor was right all along about Kyle. He's going to hurt Claire and can't help himself. And that Kyle was right all along. Nate frowns. Tell me, Audra. Just how do you know that's what Victor thinks? In the dim light of the jazz lounge, Adam leaned back with a faint smirk on his lips as Chelsea swirled her wine, her voice cutting into the low hum of the piano in the background. So, Adam, what's really going on with Kane? He's been awfully quiet since your piece ran. Too quiet. Adam's sharp eyes flickered with satisfaction and paranoia all at once as he warned her that silence wasn't a sign of surrender, not in Genoa City, and certainly not from Kane Ashby, who had been underestimated far too many times before. Adam knew Kane's type, the patient strategist who bided his time, waiting for the perfect counterstrike, and that's exactly what made him dangerous. He'll come after me when I least expect it. Adam admitted in a low tone. But I've got something cooking that Kane won't see coming, not now, not ever. Chelsea raised a skeptical brow, torn between fascination with Adam's perpetual scheming and genuine concern that his hunger to take Kane down might push him into dangerous waters with Victor. Because no matter what Adam thought, Kane's betrayal or missteps didn't erase the fact that Victor Newman's shadow loomed over every conflict in town. But Adam scoffed, making a bitter joke about his father's iron grip on Genoa City, mocking the idea that Kane should even consider aligning himself with the mustache. Kane partnering with Victor? Please, that would be suicide for him. But Chelsea, he leaned in with a wicked grin. I've got a plan of my own, a different kind of strike. You'll see, I'll win this war my way. Across town, at the Overlook bathed in fading sunlight, Sally Spectra kept pace with Billy Abbott during their evening jog, her words sharp and purposeful as she reminded him that he had willingly handed Abbott Communications over to her, that she was now the woman at the helm steering the future of the company, and she intended to play to win. Billy, always equal parts proud and irritated when someone reminded him of a concession, tried to spin it back to his advantage, steering the conversation toward Chancellor, toward power plays bigger than Sally realized, but she smirked knowingly, dropping her own surprise like a spark on kindling. Audra Charles is my new right hand, she revealed, watching Billy's eyes widen in disbelief as she defended her decision by pointing out Audra's rocky history with Victor, a vulnerability Sally planned to exploit, while Billy shook his head with grudging admiration, muttering that Sally really did thrive on pressure. Elsewhere, in the buzzing heart of society, laughter rippled from Holden's table as he entertained Tessa, Daniel, and Claire with tales of his reckless youth. But the lightness evaporated the instant Audra Charles and Nate Hastings walked in. Claire's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing, an unspoken storm gathering as she tracked Audra's every move like a hawk eyeing its prey, her distaste so sharp that Holden picked up on it, though he shrugged it off as unnecessary drama, never one to let a woman's grudge ruin his fun. But Nate, ever attuned to subtle shifts in the air, noticed Claire's tension too, insisting on checking in, which irritated Audra, who had no desire to give Claire the satisfaction of acknowledgement. Yet Claire rose to the occasion with an icy smile that masked the fury boiling beneath her calm exterior. delivering biting words about what it meant to fight back when the world tried to crush you. Tessa and Daniel exchanged looks, sensing a storm about to break as Claire abruptly stood, her glare locked on Audra, and approached Nate at the bar, apologizing softly for what she was about to say, knowing the timing, coming so soon after his brother's funeral, was cruel, but unwilling to let Audra's manipulation fester any longer. She dropped the bomb with deliberate force. Nate, I'm sorry, but your girlfriend, she made a deal with my grandfather, Victor Newman, to get Kyle to cheat on me. With her. The air thickened, Audra's panic flashing across her face as she rushed to deny it, spinning her counter-story that Kyle had been the aggressor, Kyle had been the flirt, Kyle had planted lies in Claire's head. But Claire, channeling the conviction of someone with truth on her side, blasted her as a liar, recalling the kiss she herself witnessed, the games Audra played, exposing the deal with Victor that traded Claire's heartbreak for Vibrante's funding, making Nate's face twist in stunned disbelief as he looked between the two women, Audra clutching his arm with frantic insistence that Kyle was obsessed with her, that Claire was gullible, that Victor's funding had nothing to do with her, while Claire walked away, brushing Audra's shoulder in a deliberate act of contempt, Holden rising to follow like her shadow. Left at the bar, Nate's grief and confusion weighed heavy, his trust in Audra shaken as he recalled her secrecy, her sudden departure from Vibrante, her dodgy behavior since returning from Nice, and though Audra railed that Claire was lying, his instincts told him that pieces of Claire's story fit too well to be dismissed, planting dangerous seeds of doubt. Back at the jazz lounge, Adam's scheming continued, with Chelsea warning him against open war with Victor, against the inevitable fallout of pushing Kane too far, but Adam, restless and cocky, dismissed her fears with the promise of striking from a different angle, certain he could dismantle Kane's stability without ever laying a finger on Victor. The moment Billy and Sally strolled in, the tension spiked as Sally hurled accusations of betrayal at Adam and Chelsea, her voice sharp enough to turn heads, but Adam coolly defended their coverage, insisting they had printed nothing but truth, while Billy, puffed up with his usual bravado, turned on Chelsea with a manipulative grin, warning it wasn't too late for her to redeem herself, the veiled threat laced with promises of chaos to come, as Sally announced her new position at Abbott. Communications, Chelsea's admiration briefly flickered, though it was quickly tempered by suspicion, her gaze cutting to Billy, who smirked knowingly and promised he had a bombshell of his own he'd be dropping soon, one that would shift the balance of power once again. Meanwhile, Holden praised Claire for standing up to Audra, though he pressed her gently, probing whether Audra might be telling the truth about Nice, forcing Claire to admit that while she adored Kyle, the doubt lingered, gnawing at her, the uncertainty Audra had planted like poison in her veins. At the same time, Audra was desperately working Nate at their table, trying to convince him that Claire was naive and easily swayed, that Victor himself had warned her about Kyle's true nature, but Nate, sharp enough to catch the slip, demanded to know how exactly she was privy to Victor's innermost thoughts, his frown deepening as Audra snapped back with defensive venom, her mask cracking under the weight of her own lies. Across Genoa City, the stage was set. Claire had dropped her bombshell, rattling Nate to the core and dragging Audra's schemes into the light. Adam was plotting his own attack against Kane, a strike he believed would win him the war without his father's hand guiding it. Billy and Sally were preparing their counter-strikes, aligning themselves with questionable allies and hidden weapons. And Kane, silent but seething, waited in the wings, the fuse lit, ready to explode when everyone least expected it, because in Genoa City, secrets never stayed buried, alliances were never permanent, and every whispered plan was just another match poised to ignite the next great firestorm. The silence that followed Claire's departure from society was deafening for Nate, who remained rooted to the bar as Audra's panicked protests blurred into background noise, his mind spinning between grief for his brother, betrayal by his girlfriend, and the venomous truth bombs Claire had lobbed at him with surgical precision. He rubbed his temple, exhaustion etched into every line of his face, but even through the haze he recognized something wasn't adding up, that Audra had been growing, increasingly erratic since her return from Nice, and while she hissed that Claire was a manipulative liar, his instincts screamed otherwise, because Claire, for all her flaws, didn't strike him as someone who manufactured stories out of thin air, not when the stakes involved Kyle, Vibrante, and Victor Newman's money, and as Audra tightened her grip on his sleeve, begging him to believe her, Nate finally exhaled with a tired, cutting edge. Audra, I want to believe you, but the problem is, I don't know if I can anymore. Her face went white, the confidence slipping for just a flicker before she doubled down, snapping that he was being played by a naive Newman, and that Victor would back her word over Claire's any day, but Nate's glare silenced her. He wasn't in the mood to be gaslit. At another table, Daniel and Tessa exchanged a look of pity as Claire stormed out with Holden trailing behind her, Tessa murmuring that she hated Audra for ruining what had been a rare fun night, while Daniel tried to ease her tension with a small smile, placing his hand over hers, whispering that whatever chaos was unraveling around them, he was glad she had him, glad they had each other. A moment of fragile intimacy that might have slipped unnoticed if not for Holden, who observed with an arched brow, clearly noting the spark between them. Meanwhile, at the jazz lounge, Adam's smirk widened as Billy and Sally strutted out, leaving behind tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Chelsea folded her arms, eyeing him warily as she warned that Billy wasn't nearly as broken as Adam believed, that Sally's bold move with Abbott Communications was only the beginning of a larger Abbott counterstrike, and Adam should tread carefully. But Adam, always confident to a fault, waved off her concern with a sly grin, musing that Billy had always been sloppy when trying to outwit him, and this time would be no different, because Adam's attack wasn't going to be public, wasn't going to be a war waged in headlines or press releases, but something deeper, more personal, a quiet strike designed to unravel Kane at his very core before Kane even realized he'd been targeted. And Kane, for his part, was far from the beaten man Adam painted him to be. At Chancellor Winter's, behind locked doors, Kane Ashby sat in the darkened boardroom with a tumbler of scotch, the silence broken only by the tick of the clock as Lily tried in vain to reason with him, her voice pleading as she reminded him of their children, of the need to keep his rage in check. But Kane's eyes burned with fury, the betrayal by Adam and Chelsea's article gnawing at him like acid, his career, his legacy, his very name dragged through the mud, and now whispers spread that Victor might turn on him, that alliances he thought were solid were crumbling, and all the while his enemies thrived. Adam smug in the lounge, Billy plotting with Sally, Audra climbing on Victor's dime, and even Kyle Abbott's name tossed around like a weapon. Lily begged him not to spiral, to let her handle damage control, but Kane slammed his glass on the table, snarling that words weren't enough anymore, that if Adam thought silence meant surrender he was dead wrong. They want a war? Fine. I'll give them one they won't survive. Lily flinched, the haunted look in her eyes betraying her fear that Kane was sliding back into the darkness she had fought so hard to pull him out of. But Kane had already tuned her out, his mind spinning with plans and punishments, and his first move would be to remind Abbott-Newman exactly who he was dealing with. At the same time, Holden cornered Claire outside, pressing her gently to unpack what she had said, and Claire, with tears stinging her eyes, confessed the truth of Victor's deal, the weight of betraying Kyle, the shame of playing into her grandfather's ruthless game, and Holden, surprisingly patient, reminded her that doubt didn't mean weakness, it meant she was human, though his probing tone left her rattled, because it sounded less like comfort and more like strategy, as if Holden himself were cataloging her vulnerability for future use. In society's shadows, Audra seethed as Nate pulled away from her, desperate to regain control, dialing Victor in a frenzy only to be met with his cold dismissal. Handle your mess, Audra. I don't clean up after failures. The rejection stung, leaving her stranded, cornered, and increasingly desperate, her once tight grip on Nate loosening as cracks spread through her carefully curated facade. Back at the jazz lounge, Chelsea leaned forward, warning Adam that his hunger for destruction was turning into something reckless, that Kane's silence was not submission but strategy, but Adam only smirked, sipping his drink as if savoring the anticipation of Kane's inevitable strike, unaware that Kane was already mobilizing in the shadows, reaching out to contacts Adam had long forgotten, men who owed him favors, allies who thrived in Genoa City's underworld, plotting a counterstrike not just to hurt Adam's reputation but to annihilate it. By the time Adam realized Kane was moving, it would be too late. As the city lights flickered, the pieces shifted, Claire unraveling Audra's lies at great personal cost, Nate reeling from betrayal and torn loyalties, Daniel and Tessa teetering on the edge of forbidden closeness, Billy and Sally gearing up for a corporate war, and Kane preparing a retaliation so brutal that even Victor might think twice before underestimating him. Genoa City was a powder keg now, the fuse burning faster with every whispered plan, every half-truth revealed, every scheme colliding with another, and in the center of it all, Abbott-Newman smirked in the shadows, convinced he held the upper hand, blind to the storm Kane Ashby was about to unleash. The next morning, the tension in Genoa City thickened like fog over the lake as Kane set his plan in motion, his silence giving way to quiet, calculated steps that no one could yet see coming. While Lily tried desperately to soothe him, warning that vengeance would only destroy what was left of his reputation, Kane brushed her aside, his focus sharpened on Adam, the man who had humiliated him in print and smeared his family's name. And so he made the first of several calls to men whose loyalty wasn't bound by morality but by the weight of debts owed, instructing them to dig into every corner of Adam's past, every skeleton buried, every indiscretion hidden, determined to weaponize the kind of dirt that not even Abbott-Newman could spin away. Meanwhile, Claire paced in her suite at the Grand Phoenix, her reflection in the mirror betraying the inner conflict raging inside her, because though she had done what she believed was right, exposing Audra's treachery to Nate, the fallout was brutal. Carl hadn't called. Victor was no doubt furious she had revealed his secret deal, and she couldn't shake the image of Nate's hurt expression as he walked away from Audra, dazed and broken by the truth she had dropped like a bomb in his lap. Holden watched her from the sofa, a glass of bourbon in hand, reminding her with a casual shrug that in Genoa City, truth was never clean, it always came with a price, and she had to decide if she was strong enough to pay it. At Society, Nate sat alone nursing a coffee, replaying every moment with Audra in his mind, from her charm in Nice to the subtle evasions she had perfected since her return. And though part of him wanted to believe her, the echo of Claire's words lingered louder. She traded my heartbreak for a business deal. His jaw clenched with a mixture of grief and rage, and when Audra swept in with her usual confidence, trying to smooth things over, he silenced her with one sentence that cut like a knife. I don't know who you are anymore, and I'm not sure I ever did. Audra's mask faltered, just for a flicker, before she regrouped, swearing Kyle was the villain, not her, but Nate only shook his head, realizing that the woman he thought he loved might have been a mirage all along. Across town, Adam lounged in his suite, smug as ever, sketching out his flawless plan to Chelsea, but even she sensed the unease in the air, the quiet before a storm that Kane was no doubt preparing. And though Adam scoffed that Kane didn't have the stomach for real war, a knock at his door made his smirk falter. Because sometimes the first shot in a battle wasn't fired in public, but delivered as a message in private, and Adam had just been put on notice that Kane Ashby wasn't going to stay quiet anymore.